Come now. Touch the withered arm and travel to the realm of shadow. I will not be far behind. May we meet again.
Well, boys and girls, it looks like the DLC is real after all. After many months of controller leaks, SteamDB stalking, and corporate conspiracy theories, we finally have a trailer and release date on our hands. And oh boy, what a trailer it is. Is it too early for some good old-fashioned tarnished archaeology into a shadow realm? It sure is, but let's do it anyway. Miquella beckons us to join him in his slumber, as Reddit sleuths long speculated, through contact with his seemingly lifeless body dangling from his enthroned cocoon. Transported to this realm of shadow, a rejuvenated Miquella welcomes us by presenting the state of things, the state of the Erdtree, and the dangling shadow tree that has it in its grip. More on that in a moment. This is the scene we've been shown before, where again Miquella, this time on Torrent, gazes at these dueling, interleaving trees from afar. Before we get into detail of what exactly that shadow tree is, let's frame the scene first.
I presume you, too, are keen to know just what kind Miquella is doing here.
Yes, we most certainly are, dear whoever you are. Miquella roams the Altar Lands Between on Torrent, and set at a time early in the Shattering Wars. Miyazaki's concurrently released interview confirms that the DLC stands within George R. R. Martin's original storyline. In this realm, we can see the Valley of Caelid as it was before being nuked by the stalemate battle between Malenia and Radahn. Indeed, the Halig Tree, likewise, has not yet been set in motion. In this early Shattering setting, the Tarnished are coming back in droves, as we see in a battle led by what appears to be Roderika in defense of the Erdtree, our fellow Tarnished, the Erdtree Faithful. The lead character and aggressor in this setting is a new actor, but yet an actor that is somehow familiar. Messmer. Who is this Messmer, and what do we know about him? To answer that, let's start with some observations and secrets about the trailer, because there are so many exquisite and intriguing details in this 3-minute segment, so we figured we'd share a few of the elements of the story being told through these images, and how these might tie in to the grander narrative of the DLC. And don't worry, we'll give you our characteristically unhinged speculation at the end. The Erdtree is being strangled by a Strangler Fig. In the real world, Strangler Figs are fascinating trees which parasitize their hosts, depriving them of nutrients and sunlight and eventually killing them, making them a perfect biological inspiration for this image and the story it is trying to tell. We knew from the announcement image all the way back in February of 2023 that there is the Erdtree, clearly, but there is also a second tree which is wrapped around it, seemingly draining its golden sap and strangling it. But did you know that the story of this Strangler Fig is already present in-game? In the Deeproot depths, there is unmistakable evidence of a prior Strangler having wrapped around the base of the Erdtree. And the biological inspirations go even further, but you'll have to watch our upcoming full-length DLC analysis video to get the full scoop on that, and how it relates to the fact that both of these trees are clearly burned. The world is concealed in Marika's veil. In several sections of the trailer, we can see buildings and structures that appear to be covered in something quite reminiscent of the Mimic's Veil, known as Marika's Mischief, and the dress that Marika wears in the opening cutscene. In the same way that Radagon's statues throughout the world convey the significance of his trellis and the vines it supports, Marika's statues always show her twirling dress behind her, perhaps conveying her ability to conceal the truth from the inhabitants of the lands between. And at other points in the trailer, it appears as if the entire world is covered in this veil, which actually looks quite similar to the setup in her bedchamber in Leyndell. This would all make a certain amount of sense. If this magical fabric has the power to change visual reality based on the function of the Mimic's Veil in-game, and Marika's possible ability to turn into Radagon at will, well then covering the entire world in this veil would be a way to effect a sort of Shadow Realm. Rennala, from what we can tell from the trailer, has not yet been confined to the Academy Library, and is still ruling from Raya Lucaria. Her throne room is in what appears to be the Church of the Cuckoo. But one other little detail caught our eye. Her face and mask here are nearly identical to the face on the Abductor Virgins, once again supporting the idea that they are based on her likeness, something which we mentioned in our Serpent and Erdtree video, and which has many interesting potential implications for the political allegiances within Liurnia during the Shattering. The Erdtree's leaking sap may be collected into a dedicated vessel within this version of Leyndell. In our Erdtree Births and Perfumers episodes, we discussed, at length, the notion that the life-giving sap of the Erdtree would be collected in Marika's bedchamber and distributed to the baptismal fonts throughout Leyndell for use in a life-giving ritual. In the DLC trailer, we can see that a new U-shaped structure, one that we have never seen before, is specifically collecting the leaking sap of the Erdtree. What this may be is anyone's guess, but clearly, just as control over the life-giving power of the Erdtree was paramount to the forces of Leyndell in the base game, so it clearly is here, too. There is another unknown boss that features in this teaser trailer, a terrifying but rather clumsy lion boss. Only he's not really a lion. He has human feet, and he seems to prop himself up in order to close his limply dangling jaw. So this is no lion. This is a lion's hide, worn by a warrior concealed within it. We can be sure this warrior is very proud to have slain this lion, and we can be sure this wasn't just any ordinary lion. This was a famed lion based on both in-game evidence and the real-world inspiration between wearing a lion's hide. For centuries, the image of a man wearing a lion's hide would be immediately recognizable to the ancients as a demigod of Greek mythology, Hercules, son of Zeus. Hercules' first trial was to defeat the famous Nemean lion. Nemea, now more famous for its wines, was then famous for its undefeated lion. After he slayed the beast, Hercules proudly wore the defeated lion's hide draped on his head, as he went on to perform 11 more heroic deeds that we know him from the mythos of the 12 labors of Hercules. The very next labor was to defeat the Lernaean Hydra, another creature that FromSoft has probably been inspired by. The image of Hercules wearing the lion hide endures in the collective psyche because another legendary warrior, this time a historical figure, made the image his trademark. Indeed, Alexander the Great did not portray himself on his coins, rather he used the image of Hercules wearing the Nemean lion as his avatar. So there was a boss that defeated a famous non-Nemean lion and then wore his hide as a trophy of victory. What's the story there? Well, we actually can catch a glimpse of what this famous lion would have looked like when a player character casts an incantation invoking his roar. So the vanquished owner of this pelt was, of course, not the Nemean lion, but an Omen lion, or perhaps more accurately, a crucible lion, with Omen horns and a red mane. And like other famous omens before him, we know that the crucible lion was a great warrior of Leyndell, because we see him memorialized in 2 statues there within the trailer. For all we know, Leyndell may have even gotten its name from this famous lion, as Leyne is actually an archaic form of the word lion. Hopefully we'll have time to talk about it in another video, but based on some of these architectural features in the Citadel, which appear in the Lionhide boss room, including the arches and serpentine columns, the warrior that defeated Leyndell's Omen lion may have been a warrior of Liurnia, and thus perhaps a veteran of the early Liurnian wars, before Radagon and Rennala tied the knot of peace. These are the wars previously only suggested in scattered ruins and sword monuments, but here in the DLC, we appear to be set to learn much more about this history. Recently, we teased an episode about the arrival of the technologically advanced Numen, who likely founded the Eternal Cities, based on the uppermost register of the ancient dynasty obelisk. As we've discussed before, this obelisk is clearly based stylistically off of the real-world artifact, Shalmaneser's Black Obelisk, but the actual reliefs have been changed to reflect a diegetic narrative. And the uppermost register, which is duplicated numerous times in the Grand Cloister, appears to show, of all things, ships, specifically galleons or caravels, the massive ships that became famous in our world during the Age of Exploration, when the world was first circumnavigated. Of course, they would also carry the likes of Hernan Cortez, Christopher Columbus, and countless others across the world, and would become symbols of colonization, of the first contact between 2 completely different worlds, and of the subjugation and conquest of one of them. So it's quite something then that in the trailer we can see, you guessed it, a galleon shipwreck, something we've never actually seen on land before. And in this same image we can see a rebirth monument, a product of Eternal City culture, and a field of bioluminescent flowers, again quite stylistically suggestive of the culture of the Eternal Cities. So, will we find out the story of how the Numen came to the Lands Between, and what happened to the Eternal Cities? Perhaps this is what is meant by the line on Bandai's website, which calls the Realm of Shadow, quote, a place obscured by the Erdtree, where the goddess Marika first set foot, end quote. Perhaps we will finally learn the truth of Marika's Numen origins. Maybe, but in the meantime, we've got to keep digging. Speaking of the Eternal Cities, did you know that in the trailer we can see evidence that the events of the DLC are prior to their banishment underground? For one, we can see Sellia Town of Sorcery, an Eternal City cultural outpost, and there are arches demarcating a royal road surrounding it, which don't exist in the main game. But even more intriguingly, in this shot here, we can see a relief on top of the arch terminating the Propylaea, reminiscent of the narrative told in famous arches like the Arch of Constantine in Rome. But this relief actually matches perfectly the one we can see in the Grand Cloister, indicating that this Acropolis here is part of the Eternal City culture. Shout out to Cosmos for first suggesting this possibility many months ago, based on similarities between the relief on the gable here in the DLC image tweet and that of the lower register of the Ancient Dynasty relief. But now, in the trailer, we have confirmatory evidence, and we appear to be set to learn much more about the Eternal City, and as a consequence, their forebears, the Ancient Dynasty. The DLC takes place in a prior version of the lands between. True, it may not be completely veridical history. Remember how Bloodborne's Old Hunters DLC provided a window into the history of Yharnam and the Healing Church, but did not necessarily show it precisely as it occurred, what with the dream logic and the duplicated cathedrals and whatnot. In Miyazaki's Eurogamer interview, he essentially admitted as much. The DLC involves new areas, yes, but it also takes place clearly within the narrative structure that George R.R. Martin already laid out many years ago. Martin did not write any new story for the DLC, so FromSoft are just telling a previously untold portion of the already existing narrative. In keeping with this semi-historical perspective, here in the Shadow Realm we can see recognizable landmarks, such as Leyens and Marika's bedchamber, the Cathedral of Manicelis in Liurnia, Celia, Town of Sorcery, and plenty others. And while these landmarks are recognizable, they are also unmistakably different. For example, the skyline of Leyens has some recognizable features, but many are missing. And it even appears as if its famous double walls are absent. So this DLC likely occurs in a sort of past timeline, and it appears to be specifically centered around the Shattering, as we can see a new character, Messmer, appearing to mount an attack on Leyens and the Erdtree. Speaking of Messmer, there are many fascinating details revealed about him in the trailer. For one, he appears to be seeking to claim the throne of Elden Lord. Based on his dialogue,
Mother, wouldst thou truly lordship sanction in one so bereft of light?
and he is sitting in the final image on a chair with the Tree of Yeshai pattern, the pattern we see in the Elden Throne Room council chairs. If he is calling out to his mother, who has the power to sanction lordship, it would imply that his mother is Marika, and this fits with the naming convention of the demigod children. The Golden Lineage have G names like Godwyn and Godric. The Radagon and Rennala brood have R names, Radon, Rykard, and Rani. And finally, the Marika and Radagon brood have M names, Mikola, Melania, Melina. The name Messner would place him as a child of Radagon and Marika, as would his red hair. So here we have a usurper to the throne, another lost demigod who attempted to assault the Erdtree. Continuing with Messmer's story, the flame sorceries of Mount Gelmir appear to be a big part of his arsenal. Certainly no surprise based on the current state of Volcano Manor that we see in-game. In fact, in one shot of the trailer, we can even see lava filling the plains of Liurnia. But where did this lava come from? Well, there's another shot with a mechanism used to pump lava for use in war. This is a very cool scene, but the detail that caught our eye is the corkscrew device contained within. This device is based on a real-world mechanism, known generally as an Archimedes screw. Such devices are still used today, but they have a truly ancient history, with records dating at least as far back as the Hellenistic Greeks in the 3rd century BC. And they possibly were even used to water the famous Hanging Gardens of Babylon, making them the oldest known type of hydraulic device. Here, though, in Mount Gelmir, the hydraulic pump is used as a weapon of war. Once again, FromSoft are taking inspirations from the real world and adapting them in fascinating ways. Finally, way back in our Serpent and Erdtree video, we discussed how the ritual shield and sword talismans, along with the duelist set, make it clear that during the age of the Colosseum, the gladiators would reenact an ancient struggle between the treacherous snake and the defenders of the Erdtree. And our further analysis identified that the forces of Mount Gelmir tried to attack and burn down the Erdtree, precisely what we see going on in the DLC trailer. Notice how the serpentine columns seen in Volcano Manor are seen throughout the DLC trailer. And in our video, we argued that it was ultimately the Crucible Knights who defended the Erdtree against the snakes, at least based on the similarity between their armor and sword and the ritual talismans. So, isn't it interesting then that in the boss fight clip in the trailer, the player character uses the characteristic Crucible Knight attack, complete with the golden wings, to attack the serpentine Messmer. Once again, they are showing us that the Crucible Knights, defenders of the Erdtree, fought valiantly against the treacherous snakes, who sought to use the power of flame to destroy the Erdtree. It seems we will finally be getting the full story of that attempt in the DLC. Of course, we will have to wait for all the details to unfurl of this saga, how a previously unknown to us demigod was defeated in the first acts of the Shattering Wars, how the other demigods after Messmer took up arms against each other, leading to the last two standing, Malenia and Radahn, how the burning of the Erdtree became expected, commonplace even, though it is touted in a rather nonchalant tone as the first cardinal sin, and how Miquella refined his plans for a new, distant tree. But you know what, fellow Tarnished archaeologists? All of those are stories for many other days. Well, that's it for this video. The trailer just came out yesterday, so these are just our initial impressions. And we haven't watched anyone else's videos yet, or gone on Reddit, in a deliberate attempt to give unadulterated first impressions. But now the fun begins. We'll need your help to decipher the meaning between some of these clues, and we look forward to your theories.